I am absolutely thrilled to be here. I was saying to so many people that it's been our first big event after COVID, so please give yourself a round of applause to be here today sharing this space with us. So this topic is very rooted in my heart, and I'm really happy to be able to share the stage and bring some amazing people from the industry. So I want to welcome David from WPP Unite, Ari from Havas Pride, and Claire from Publicis Egalite. So please, guys, make your way to the stage. Amazing. So my name is Amy. My pronouns are he, him. You might be wondering, why the hell is a yoga teacher doing on the stage? Wow. Don't worry, I'm not gonna ask you to go into a headstand right now. We will leave that for the after party.
Hello.
I've been doing events for Outvertising for around 5 years, and in my previous life, I used to work on media. So Outvertising is kind of the only thing that keeps me rooted to the industry. And I'm really happy to be here with friends and catching up with lots of people today. So I want to leave you guys to do a round of an introduction. First of all, I wanted to say that the reason why this topic is so important to me, and you can tell by my accent, I don't sound British, even though I have a British passport. I am originally from Colombia. So when I came to the UK 12 years ago, I always describe my experience as coming out in some random beautiful place like Alice in Wonderland. And that was that I felt when I landed in the UK in February 2011. 2011. And the reason why this is so important is because being a person of color, Latino, gay, living in London, I actually felt a place for me to be able to express myself, my identity, and that was something that working in big corporations like Dentsu, WPP at Mindshare, OMD International allowed me to really get my, excuse my language, shit together and really get to embrace my own expression and be able to translate that into the work that I did with so many organizations on setting up networks to really, support our brothers and sisters and being able to support amazing work with clients. So that's basically why I wanted to have this space for us to learn from amazing people that are already doing really good job in the industry. So I'm gonna pass it over to you, David.
Hi. Can I just first of all say thank you for titling this Networks rather than my least favorite acronym in our community, which is ERG. It's not sexy. Also, we're not a resource, just to point that out and be clear on that. Hello, yeah, lovely to meet you all. I'm David, and I had the honour of kicking off WPP Unite a couple of years ago with, and I'm looking around this room, a whole load of brilliant people who have become colleagues and friends, and I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ari.
Thank you for having me. I'm Ari. I'm not American, I'm Filipino. I just sound American because of school situation. But I am very humbled to be here, considering I'm a nobody in Havas, except for just, this loud, queer individual in their front of house who basically, explodes rainbow all over the place. And I second what David said. I'm so glad that they titled this as Networks and not ERG, because honestly, I just hate those acronyms.
Hello, Claire.
I'm Claire. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the co-lead for Égalité. So Publicis is a French company, so everything we do is French, so you have to say égalité, which means equality, by the way. I'm also very glad and very humbled to be here today at the Outvertising and also speaking to other network leads, and my other co-lead, Paul, is sitting in the room today as well.
Thank you so much.
Same stage.
I know, right? This is gonna be a bombshell. So let's crack on, guys. So I met Ari last year, I think he was, in an event at Havas. When I first arrived to the reception, I was actually with Mark. We were delivering a conference, And when I saw Ari throwing the rainbows all over the place, I thought to myself, oh my God, she is working it. And it's so amazing, to be able to work into an organization as big as Havas and see that there is a queer person in the reception, working everybody. She's being respected. Like, seriously, she's a lioness in the reception. Like, everybody is really like supportive, and Ari has an stage. If you ever go to Havas, you will see her in action, and she's absolutely amazing. She was recently, you're being recently part of you're a coacher now, Havas Pride, right? Which is amazing. So one of the things that Ari was telling me before is that one of the things that she has found inspiring and interesting is how Havas Pride has support her self journey in terms of like her own expression, but also how Havas Pride is kind of harnessing that experience from queer people in the organization to be able to influence amazing work that is already being produced. So Ari, I would love you to share your experience with some of the projects that you have been leading yourself with the team, and also how that has been fueling your own expression, also the support of people working at Havas Pride.
Yeah, I mean, it's only just been very recent that I got appointed as the co-chairman of Havas Pride. But prior to that, I've kind of always had this idea that it doesn't matter how kind of bottom you are in like the kind of, the what do you call this? The triangle of like a company. You can always affect change in any which way possible as long as you have the voice to make it happen. And it's always just a case of, it doesn't matter whether it's a small or as a big impact or whatever, it's you pushing forward to make those changes. And one of the things that I'm very proud of is we were kind of getting back from the whole debacle of Miss Rona raging rampage throughout the entire world. One of the account managers at Havas just basically said, oh, we want to have your input on a project that we're doing with Durex. And it was one of those things where I definitely felt, oh my gosh, what is going on? We're gonna be consulting on a brand. This is we've moved past that whole kind of just creating a safe space for queer people within the four walls of Havas to exploring and venturing out and making sure that a message is as authentic as much as possible when it comes out to the real world. And we sat for a very long time, in and outs of meetings, consulting back and forth with emails and making sure that this particular campaign, My Sex, My Way for Durex, came out as authentically as much as possible with the correct language and the correct voicing and portrayal of each and every individual experience of queerness in general. Low-key, I really wanted to be a part of this campaign, but they said I needed to have a partner, but unfortunately I didn't, so I couldn't be a part of it. But that being said, I was still part of the background stuff, which I was still really, really proud of. It was just one of those things where it was a way for the brand to make sure that they're taking the narrative and using the narrative from queer people and putting it out into the world that this is the type of activity that doesn't necessarily have to be normalized. And every type of activity I meant is it can be normalized. It doesn't have to be just one way. And that's why they titled the campaign My Sex, My Way. And, I'm pretty sure all of you have your own way of doing things in the bedroom. So, this is why, the whole thing spoke to me. And I was just I'm so happy to be a part of this. And on top of this, this was prior to kind of me being co-chairman and everything. I was just kind of being a part of the group as their trans and non-binary representative, it helped me see a different perspective that networks within the company that you work for is not only there to just create that initial safe space for people to be involved in. It's also a way for a company to utilize whatever good everyone has to offer in any type of capability that they have or whatever position that they have on an insight on how to make sure something is delivered to the most authentic level as much as possible. And that's why when this came out and I first saw the billboard, I actually legitimately cried because it was just one of those things where it made me felt like as a queer person, I was seen. As someone who is born in an immigrant family and I came here, I never went to university, being a part of such a grand kind of campaign in like the background of it made me felt like I feel very seen, like I feel very supported. And that's kind of like what propelled me to make sure that like what like Emmy witnessed when, and Mark witnessed when they walked into, you know, the HKX building is that like, I need to always and constantly be that representation for people like me. So whenever you walk through the Havas building, or anyone who walks past the Havas building, I want them to see that there's a queer individual here. And like what was said earlier is that like, if you see a queer person doing amazing, that also gives you that self of like, I can do that too. And that's ultimately what I want to happen as a whole, is that like people who are either like in the younger generations or like the older generations. I mean, I am old.
Are you?
Yeah, I am old. But it's just to just have this sense of comfortability and just, you know, be your authentic self as much as possible. Like the words that I live by is, never hide away your true authentic self because the world deserves to see it.
Yes, absolutely.
And you know, that's why I'm so proud to be a part of this platform, to have been invited by Outvertising to kind of just share with you guys my experience and the importance of having a network within your companies and how it not only promotes that safe space initially that I mentioned, it basically creates a space for everyone to flourish and do the best that they can do and always put their best foot forward.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. And I think what you have said is so powerful. That goes to some conversation that I had with somebody ages ago when they were saying, we want to set up a network, but we don't have any queer people working in the organization. And that was what they was actually stopping them by. And I said to them, this is ridiculous because you don't actually know who might be already queer, or they might have a queer experience already happening in their family. They might have a bisexual children. Maybe their mom is lesbian. You don't really know what happens in people's life. So having the network and being able to really drive the representation and creating a space for people to be their authentic self is so important. And I think that if there is anyone in this room that works in an organization that might not as big as, you know, the big organizations that we have in the industry, and if you don't have a network, definitely there is an opportunity for you to bring people together. If you don't have queer representation, just use your allies, talk with people in advertising, catch up with people in other networks, because the opportunity is that even if you don't have anyone queer at the moment, you don't know, maybe your next CEO might be a trans person. So you have to be prepared in order for you to be changing,
Exactly.
doing that.
Exactly. Like having allies is equally as much as important as having queer representation within a company, because that's what kicks it off. It's like you giving that presence of this sort of equal opportunity for everyone. So that's absolutely amazing.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ari. I love
welcome.
that. Thank you. So going to kind of talking about the power of representation. So I met David. How many years ago?
You were wearing fabulous shoes then as well.
Trying to every day. So I met David years ago in an event from WPP. We click. So when this opportunity came around, and in my previous job at Mindshare, David started leading WPP Unite. So back then was just UK chapter, and now it's an international force. And I think that there is so much stuff that you can definitely share with us today in a couple of minutes, because I really think that David himself has that vision. Is that person that is like an entrepreneurial person, but has that mission to bring something that is really small to now have representation of WPP Unite across India, New Zealand, Australia, the US. It's just insane. I am absolutely proud to be an ex-WPP person and see from the boundaries all the amazing job that you guys are doing. So David, can you please share with us some light around how can people think about taking the networks to the next level in order for them to be able to support people in other territories?
I think it's, if that's the right thing to do for your network, I mean, we can't shy away from the fact that WPP is huge and incredibly global. And I think to answer some of those questions, it helps to explain the journey that we've been on slightly. So Unite was founded in the UK, and it has the name Unite because, I mean, I'm sure everybody here would agree, we just have a fundamental belief that when all parts of our community support all other parts of our community, we rise. The L supporting the B, supporting the T, supporting the G. So there's no point in trying to isolate different parts of the community from one another. We're stronger together. And actually, when you start applying that thinking and that belief to the structure of WPP, so many brilliant, fantastic agencies of different sizes and shapes, actually you start appreciating that there's more to be gained by bringing the community together across these different agencies in a shared space and a shared community. So it started in the UK, by the time that we'd started to gain some traction, we had a really open source attitude towards sharing everything we were doing. We were giving other markets who'd got in touch, seeing some of the work that we'd done, saying, how do we do that? It was like, here is the workshop that we ran. We're going to send it to you. Here are the templates that we made. Here are the people that we spoke to. And we just had a really open approach to creating Unite and helping other markets launch it. And the way that we use Unite in different markets varies because, again, you know, we're talking about the LGBT experience globally, right? It varies from country to country. And that's the attitude that we've had with the way that Unite shapes and molds. So in the UK, for example, Unite has been taken into many WPP agencies as their agency-specific network. So, you know, there's Chewy here from Essence Mediacom Unite, and James is here, who is part of Grey Unite. I'm part of the AM Partnership Unite. So in the UK, that's what works for us. In America, they've got far older, longer legacy networks. But what they didn't have was something, a cause, that brought them together around key issues. So it works more as an umbrella in the USA and also in Australia and New Zealand. Whereas in India, again, a totally different experience. What was needed is something that isn't thrown around within the individual agencies, but something that's very much branded WPP Unite, that is a safe space where people can gather virtually, gather physically, share those parts of their identities that are perhaps less safe to share outside of the doors of a WPP office in India. So it's really been created with a real share attitude. And I think that mentality is what has inspired such brilliant work coming out of each of those markets under Unite. This is a snapshot of some of the work that we've done over the last year in the UK. And I just think there's so much to be said for empowering people and giving them stuff that looks good. Like, it sounds so basic. I mean, I'm a brand strategist. I work in a creative agency. I'm like, it's got to look good. And we were sat down, we were like, the very first thing that people told us is, I try to do these things in my agencies, but I'm not a designer. I use Comic Sans and I stick a poster on the back of the toilets and no one comes to my talk. It was like, right, we are going to pull together the designers who want to be involved, like the brand strategists, the creators, and actually create a real open source identity that everybody would be proud to use. That's been one thing that's really glued a lot of different activity together. But by bringing together the different agencies in the UK with their individual committees, what it means is you start kind of approaching a lot of things far more creatively. So last year we created a rainbow of content that was all about the intersection between the queer experience and the advertising world, inspired by the individual colours on the Pride Progress flag and what that means. We approached LGBT History Month in a different way. We were like, let's break it down. Why doesn't Wavemaker cover her story? MediaCom will cover their story. The AND Partnership will cover our story. Let's actually approach this as a team. And it goes on from training that's been going on, different events, marching together at Pride for the first time this year as one collective company. There were 70 of us marching from, I think, 20-ish different WPP agencies, and that feeling of collectiveness and together was extraordinary. But the other thing that we have been doing is, if that's all about making our workplaces really inclusive, there's a lot of us here who also share the belief that we're in an industry where we just can't help ourselves. We're going to tamper with the work to make sure we're seen within it, right? So be a power force when you're going to do that. And what we've started to do is bring together LGBTQ plus people from different agencies who want to work on things together in a non-siloed way around causes that they care about, campaigns that they want to be involved in. An example is in North America, a team of agencies came together as WPP Unite to create what's called the Reality Flag campaign, which was the human rights campaign to pass the Equalities Act in North America and ensure that all LGBT people in every single state have equal rights. That was kind of our first big foray into work. And there's other exciting things that are going on as well. But one example that Emmy asked me to share is this summer, we approached Pride in London and we said, we would like to see an incredibly representative Pride this year that brings it back to its roots and that is more grounded in the heritage of 50 years of marching in the UK and that spirit of protest, and we would really like to make that for you. And we did that with an entirely LGBTQ team, from the account execs booking the rooms, to the media planners, to the production on the shoot, to the brand strategists, to the designers. Every single part of this campaign was entirely created by LGBTQ plus folk. And that is kind of magical. And I hope you see that reflected in the work that we're about to play.
Thank you. The video is actually here, so we actually gonna press play because I think it's a really cool piece of content that deserves to be showcased one more time. Yeah.
We've been marching in the capital since the flag was first flown. Picketing when newspapers made villains of heroes. Revolting until they decriminalized love. Fighting for the right for all to give blood. Screaming stop when Section 28 was passed. Battling to make sure it would never last. Rising up when they ignored the gay cancer. And refusing to accept death as the answer. Because our reality is not a condition, and all our genders deserve recognition. We march for the right to walk down the aisle, and we march still with a knowing smile. These city streets are paved in our queer victories. For the next 50 years, we need us all to make new history. To come together and demand our rights. Fight till us trans folk no longer fear for our lives. To take to the streets of this great London town against the crimes on those of us who are black and brown. To banish the secrecy, prejudice and shame. Make autonomy of our intersex bodies ours to claim. To raise our fists and shout till we're hoarse. Until conversion therapy is banned for all. So come together, it's time to cry. We march for all our pride.
I'm very proud of that, but for me, that is an example of queer creativity, and everybody in this room has the power to make that happen by the nature of just going to your jobs and being who you are, because you work on, you put things out in the world that make, that everybody sees. Like, you have the power to make stuff like that happen. So, little rallying cry there. And look, it looks really pretty as well. Told you, I work at a creative agency. So how we did it, very briefly, just in terms of that global question at the beginning, My advice would be incredibly, incredibly open if you are planning on scaling things up. So we started with a working group of about 25 of us in the UK from across different agencies, and we sweated the hell out of a workshop. And we got really clear on, like, what should the name be? What should the spirit be? Who do we want to be the senior sponsors? Document all of it, get it down, get it in writing, and make it really shareable and accessible. What we then did is we brought more people together and we broke everyone out into about 9 different work streams. The idea being that it should be the community that shapes what Unite is. So deciding, how do the comms work? What's the governance structure? How long do co-chairs exist? How long do co-chairs have their roles for before they're passed over? So we got really into the detail of it. We then launched the visual identity and we open sourced it to everyone, and we put out a rallying cry saying we're looking for extraordinary leaders who want to take charge of this and run it in their markets. And I know it sounds like there's some magic secret sauce about how we've made Unite go global, but that was it. I think you need to look for people who want to create something extraordinary, but for people who don't always want to have to lead it. Because the thing is that all of these spaces should exist for people to be there and not feel like they need to be weighed down by the responsibility of running it personally. It should be accessible, and there's far more that can be achieved when you all work on something like that together. So.
Amazing. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you.
Really inspiring. Thank you. So we all agree that community engagement, and especially supporting underrepresented communities, is a pivotal role of any network, not just an LGBTQ+, but anything relating to race, ethnicity, religion. So I want to invite Claire to share some really interesting insights around the word that Publicis Égalité, if I'm saying it right, thank you. My Spanish is better than my French. Has done to support the Black queer community, but especially the trans community. You shared with us that earlier this year, Égalité launched the policies for trans and non-binary people in the workplace, but most amazing, they're actually supporting with actual money for people to have their treatments done. So, which is something amazing. So I would like you to please share with us something around that process, just so people in the audience can, get some inspiration from them to bring the trans policies into a workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if at the end of those 10 minutes, everyone will be able to kind of like roll out trans policies in their companies. That's the hope. But I think if we go back a little bit to what was talked about in this panel already, so Égalité has existed since 2019. It was the first network that was created at Publicis in the UK. It's the oldest one, and it's also the biggest one. So we have about 250 members just for the UK. And I think the reason why I'm saying this is because you need those foundational years of being able to provide for a safe space and build your network and create the templates and do the networks, etc., before you can move on to really sort of being so influential at a group level. And then I'd say the second thing is every company network is only ever going to be as important and as powerful as the company itself wants it to be. So if you have an amazing network, but you don't have any support internally, you're not going to go very far. And I think everyone here on this panel in this room is lucky enough to be working for companies who are putting diversity and inclusion at the forefront and as a big priority for the company as a whole. So linked to that, I think, is the fact that so our network will be led by a board of 8 members, but then we also have 2 executive sponsors. And what our executive sponsors do is that they meet at the C-level and they're our voice there. So when we knew that Publicis was going to roll out trans policies, this was at the back of a lot of work that we had done, meeting with the executive sponsors, on a monthly basis, meeting with the head of DE&I on a bi-weekly basis, and just being able to consult and talk together. So I don't think there's a magic formula. I think the best formula is to always be open and to communicate to people and to try and create allyship at different levels within your company. This is what's going to be help you to kind of like shape and really influence the companies and the culture inside as a whole. So once we had done that and once we knew that the trans policies were going to be rolled out, we just thought about what is the best way to support the employees when this is going to be rolled out. And so there was a few things. So the first thing is that once the trans policies were posted, we got a lot of questions, and the questions are not going to go to like your head of HR. They're going to come to Egalité. They're going to come to the board members. They're going to come through the Teams channel. So what we did is that we gathered those questions and we passed them on to, you know, the people who had the best answers and also the best training for that. So that's the sort of being a first port of call was a big thing once those trans policies were rolled out. I think a second thing, you mentioned it, David, having lots of trainings that are provided within the company. So for all employees, but also within the LGBTQ community, there is a lot of misknowledge about, you know, the T in the umbrella. So really pushing for and promoting all the trainings that were available through Publicis, but to our community, and saying this is really something that you should take an hour and a half or 2 hours this quarter to attend, is also something I think that makes a difference and that will help once those policies are rolled out for people to embrace them. And I think the last thing is we talked a bit about, you know, the responsibility that companies and network have in terms of where we invest resources, whether it is time or money. So, and this is not, you know, I think Pride in London did a great job, and it's not to say some events are better than others, but this year we had a clear focus within our network to support trans event and to support smaller local grassroots events. So we decided that we're not going to march at Pride in London as part of Publicis UK, but we're going to march at Trans Pride. So we had that's us. We had a whole group of people coming together and gathering and supporting Trans Pride. And then we did the same for UK Black Pride. So it was the very first time this year for Publicis to be present at UK Black Pride, which was an amazing event if some of you attended. And being able to be there with a stall and with a group of people and to connect. And this is not to market yourself or to kind of like sold the brand, but it's really to say, Publicis is a safe environment, and it is also a company where there's zero tolerance towards any sort of like transphobic or homophobic behavior. And us being there shows that we're walking the extra mile and that we're investing time and resources and making it safe for all employees to join. So I think in terms of what you can do as a network, if you have policies from the company that are being rolled out, I'd say those would be my pieces of advice. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Claire. Thank you so much. So we have 1 minute and 50. 1 minute and 50 seconds left. Oh my God. I haven't have my virgin and tonic. Thank you.
It's like countdown.
Do we have any questions from the audience?
Shall we do an American football throw? I mean,
yeah, let's go for it.
Probably won't trust me because
this lady here in the front. Okay, then we go to you. Hello. Hi, Polly.
I don't know if you can hear me. Hi, Emmy. You talked a little bit, Claire, about supporting underrepresented groups and underrepresented prides. I think that's a really good point. There's about 200. I used to be on the board of Pride in London. There's about 250, I think, prides in the UK at the moment. I think next year, I think in the summer next year, trans in the city who had an event last night are actually going to be doing something at. Now I'm going to think of the Pride. It's somewhere like in the West Country, it would be really good to see brands get behind that and support them. They did a great event yesterday. Trans community is really struggling at the moment. I was at an event yesterday where 600 people turned up and were in a space where they could be themselves. It would just be amazing to get the message out for a small pride that it's a safe space for trans people to be. So my message, I guess, it's not a question, is it would be great for a brand to, I'm on the trans city board, to get behind that community this year. Prides are great, but prides get a lot of promotion, but the trans community really needs support.
Thank you, Polly. Let's do one question, guys, and then if you have more questions, please come and grab us in the break.
There. Is that okay? Sorry. Hi, yeah, Ari, you mentioned talking about people coming to you at Havas to work on the campaign.
Yeah.
And because you are, you know, so visibly queer and happy and proud about it, I was wondering if you had a perspective on sometimes, you know, anyone being othered, whether that be for race or for being queer, and then being approached to work on something, and they might not want to because they feel like, oh, you're just asking me because I'm queer, let's say. Do you have a thoughts on that, or how to approach that within a company, within a brand, where you want someone to help you with something and work on something and be included, but they might not want to feel like you're only coming to them for that reason? So I'm interested to know how the account manager approached you.
So for us, it was more so, it wasn't like a type of case where it was like a pressurized type of environment where we just basically got told, we need you to do this type of situation. I think ultimately, before myself and the members of Havas Pride ultimately decided to participate in the consultation process of the whole project, was we had a discussion, and we wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be a case where each and every one of us will be tokenized to just because we are this, that we have to be, and it's like, it's just basically something that we just have to give type of situation. I think that it was approached in a way where it was very respectful to each and every one of our personal experiences. In general, I think that it's always really difficult to kind of approach somebody to ask them sort of questions that particularly sort of relates to their personal experiences, because like you don't want that person to feel like they're being tokenized because they're this individual. And I think it all comes into play of, and I greatly appreciate this, that like I think the account manager's view was, at the end of the day, these are kind of, you know, these are our colleagues, and we have to make sure that like their personal experiences and their views and POV on any given situation is fully respected. And whether or not they wanted to participate, yes or no, should always be a question right at the very beginning. And that's like, you know, the advice that I would give.
One thing off that, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I just think everybody should really take away as well. There is a difference between somebody working at a marketing or whatever agency. It's a difference between somebody who is LGBTQ+ working in an agency on marketing or whatever, and an expert on LGBTQ+ marketing.
Exactly.
Just to be really blunt about that. So I'm glad to hear that happened for you.
No, of course, because like it's really, what David said is really important, because you don't want just some random persons, or what do you call this, on a agency scale. You don't want it to be, how do I say this being political?
Just say it.
You don't want it to be that person's personal opinion and it to be represented by that single individual. It needs to be at a scale where it still needs to be a representation of your company, if that makes sense. Like, you can't solely base a project based off of like my personal view on a matter, because that's not conducive to what you're trying to portray to the outside universe. Because my view is my view. It could be completely different to the next other people that you would come across with. And yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, guys, I hope you enjoy it. Sorry, Lucy, I'm making you sweat. It's only 4 minutes and 20 seconds. Okay. So, we are now going to a break. Lucy's coming back to the stage. I hope you guys enjoy. If you have any questions, grab us on the room.